Let's talk about how we can use Microsoft Project to set up and manage a portfolio of projects. First, we'll start with the big picture. Portfolio managers need data to exercise control over the projects in the organization's pipeline. First, they need the inventory of all projects, not just the big ones. We have to include them all, or we can't manage resource utilization. We also need to have the ability to set priorities and reflect those priorities in the assignments of people working on projects. Last, we have to have the ability to shift resources between projects as things change and priorities shift. To accomplish those objectives, we follow several steps to set up the portfolio and then keep it updated each week. First, let's talk about the big picture. After each project is accepted into the portfolio, we enter the priority for each project, and then we save all the files into a single directory on the LAN or on your PC. Then we link every project to one resource pool so that we share resources across projects. We use a single resource pool file for all projects so that we don't assign the same resource multiple times. Any difference in capitalization or spelling of any name will be considered a new resource. Next, we update the projects with status data from the team weekly. After that, we bring all the projects into one project file. This is called a consolidation. The software applies resource leveling to all the projects each week so that we don't schedule anyone for more project work than they can complete in any day, week, etc. This also causes low priority projects to have their start delayed. Last, we can produce executive reports on who is doing what and which projects are slipping versus the plan, as well as produce a schedule for each person that tells them which projects to work on each day. With that big picture, keep in mind one key rule of thumb. All of the individual project plans need to be built with work estimates for each assignment, not start and finish dates. Predecessor relationships to control the sequence of the tasks and resources assigned to each task, and the resources consistently named in all projects. In the remainder of this discussion, first we'll cover how we set up the portfolio for the first time. Then we'll talk about how we update it each week. So let's talk about creating a shared resource pool for the first time. The resource pool is a shared file among all the separate project files so that we can share resources among projects and optimize our schedules to be done as soon as possible based on project priority. To set up your resource pool, the first thing we do is create the shared resource pool. The shared resource pool is a Microsoft project file with no tasks, but it has the names, overall availability, and billing rates of everyone who works on projects. We save that file in one standard directory and call it Shared Resource Pool with today's date. All of the individual project schedules will also be saved in this directory. Now we work with our individual project schedules. All new projects that will be going into the standard directory with the resource pool need to have their baseline saved. Also, every project has a priority number as determined by the Executive Steering Committee. Priorities can be set from 100 to 900, with 900 being the highest priority. As a matter of practice, we usually only assign priority from 100 to 700 to allow for top prioritization of emergency projects into our pipeline. To assign a priority number to a project, highlight all the lines in your project file, right-click, select Task Information, and then in the box enter the priority number. We're in Project 1 right now, which is a 200 level priority, and we click OK. Then we go to Project 2. Once again, highlight all the lines in the project, right-click, select Task Information, and Project 2 is also a 200 level priority. Then we go to Project 3. Highlight all the lines, right-click, select Task Information, and Project 3 is a 100 level priority. Select OK. Go on to Project 4. Highlight all the lines. Right-click. Select Task Information. Enter 300 for our priority. And now we're on to our last project, number 5. Highlight all the lines. Right-click. Task Information. And Project 5 is our highest priority at 400. So now that we have all the projects prioritized, we're going to go ahead and close the files. Saving our changes as we go. Next, we open the Shared Resource Pool file and select the first option, Open Resource Pool Read Only, allowing others to work on projects connected to the pool. And we select OK. And now we're going to go back and open up each of the individual project files. Then we'll just do it in order, starting with Project 1. We're going to select Tools, then Resource Sharing, and Share Resources. We'll click Use Resources From, and then select our Shared Resource Pool. Also make sure Pool Takes Precedence is selected. Then we click OK. We'll repeat this process for every project. Use resources from Shared Resource Pool. Pool takes precedence, and click OK. On to Project 3, Tools, Resource Sharing, Share Resources, Use resources from Shared Resource Pool. Pool takes precedence, OK. On to Project 4, Tools, Resource Sharing, Share Resources, Use resources from Shared Resource Pool. Pool takes precedence, OK. And on to our last Project 5, Tools, Resource Sharing, Share Resources, Use resources from Shared Resource Pool. Pool takes precedence, and click OK. Then we're going to save and close all the Microsoft project files again. As you can see, Microsoft Project is giving us a message asking if we want to update the resource pool, and we do, so we click OK. And then we close. Save the changes to Project 5, yes, and click OK again. And then we're going to go to Project 4, hit Save, OK, and close. Project 3, we go Save, OK, close. Project 2, Save, OK, close. And for Project 1, File, Save, OK, close. And let's close the resource pool. Alright, now we're going to open the Shared Resource Pool again and select the third option this time, which is Open Resource Pool Read Write and all other share files into a new master project file. You can access this new master project file from the window menu command. And we'll click OK. So in a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on the number of project files, a new single project file is going to be created with all the projects in it listed as summary tasks. And by default, Microsoft Project has named it Project 1. I collapse them all so you can see that high-level view. And first, before we do anything else, we're going to save this as consolidation with today's date. And it's a Microsoft Project is asking if we want to save the changes to the shared resource pool. We say yes. And now it's going to ask if we want to save all the changes to each of the projects. We'll say yes. Yes. Project 3, yes. Project 4, yes. Project 5, yes. So as you just saw, we saved the consolidation with the file name consolidation and then today's date. We do this so that each week we can compare the consolidations and what has changed from week to week. So now in this file, as I showed you, we can expand the summary tasks to see the details of each of the project's tasks. Just click on the plus sign next to the project name. So as you can see, let me zoom out just a little bit. Scrolling down in the software, you can see these tasks have pushed out a little bit. And the software automatically prioritizes the projects for us based on those priority numbers we set just a couple minutes ago. So the projects and tasks with the highest priority are scheduled to take place first. Resource leveling has also made sure that none of our resources are over-allocated or scheduled beyond their availability. So as you can see right here, we've got a forecasted completion date of our last project, number 5, of 3/28. And then let's just work our way up through the projects. Project 4 is going to be up here. That's going to have a forecasted completion date of 5/4. Here's another one in August 24th to be exact. So as you can see, the forecasted completion dates are pushed out for each project based on the priority number that we set in the portfolio. After you've run the consolidation, you can generate weekly reports including resource utilization, who does what when, over budget, under budget, individual schedules, and so on. To do this, we click on Report and then Reports, and you can choose which report you want to print. For example, we can click on Assignments and then select who does what when for a report on all our resources and what tasks they're scheduled to work on each day. So when you're done, close the consolidation and select Yes and Yes to all, so all the project files are updated with the changes based on project prioritization and resource availability across all the projects. After the consolidation is run, we do weekly updates to the consolidated projects. We do this each week to get updated status for all our projects. First, we enter the status reports from each of the team members. Then we run the consolidation of all the projects to determine if we have any overruns that need to be fixed, as well as generate the weekly reports for management and the project team. So every 7 days, you should get the status reports from the team members for their project work and update the consolidation. We want to get each team member's update on the hours of work completed and the hours of work remaining. So first, we open the directory of projects, as you see here, and then we open each individual project file that we have a status report for. So we enter the status reports for the week as well as any changes in project priority. So let's go over the details. The only project tasks scheduled to take place the first week were on projects 4 and 5. So we open up those project files and select Open Resource Pool to see assignments across all sharer files. So we've got project 4 open, and now we're going to open project 5. So first now we need to save the baseline. We click on Tools, and then on the drop-down menu, we click on Tracking, and then Set Baseline. As you can see, a new window popped up. Make sure Set Baseline and Entire Project are selected, and then we click OK. Your baseline's now saved. It's like a Polaroid picture of your entire project that's been saved. As you enter changes and actuals each week, this baseline version of the plan will not change, so we can always compare the original plan to our current schedule. So we saved the baseline as you just saw for project 4 or 5, and now we're going to go to project 4 and do the same thing. We click on Tools, and then Tracking, Set Baseline for entire project, and click OK. The next thing we do is switch from the Gantt chart view to the tracking Gantt so we can monitor actual project status versus the baseline. So we click View and then Tracking Gantt. So we've got to scroll out to the correct place in time, and let me just zoom out a little bit so we can see more of the big picture. But as you can see here now, the bars in our Gantt chart are now split, and the top half is either red or blue, depending on whether a task is on the critical path or not. And the bottom half of the bar is always gray, because that's the baseline and it won't change. So there are a couple more settings we want to change before we enter our status reports. The first thing we do is set the date of the status reports. So we go to Project, and then Project Information, and change the status date to 3/6/15, which is the first Friday of our project. And also take note, just to the left, we have a forecasted finish date of 5/4/2016. So we click OK. So we open up Project 5, and we'll start with our status reports for that date. Project Information, our status date, as we just said, is 3/6/15. Forecasted finish date of 3/28/16. Click OK. Alright, so there's one other view we want to change. And we're going to click in the lower half of our screen, right-click, and select Resource Work. This view is a little bit different from the one you've been working with previously. We still see the resources assigned to each task. Let me click on one so you can see we have Lucian assigned here. And you can see we have their max units, their work estimate, any overtime work we scheduled, baseline work, and the last two columns are where we'll enter the status report information. So as I mentioned before, we want the team members to give us two numbers: the amount of actual work they've completed and their estimate of the amount of work remaining. That forecast of the remaining hours of work is the key to status reporting because it lets us identify problems when they're small and easier to fix. So with our views all set up on both of our projects, let's start entering status reports. As I mentioned, the information we need from team members for every in-progress task is the actual hours worked on the task this past week and their estimate of the hours that will be required to finish the task. So as I mentioned, we've completed the first week of the project and we have 5 tasks that should have started. 4 of those tasks are on project number 5 and 1 is on project number 4. Let's start by updating project 5. So the first task we're going to update is task number 2, which is Start, and we're going to enter 100% complete in the lower half of the window because the project has obviously started. So then the first real task that I have a status report for is task number 4. Therapist schedules are 98% accurate 90% of the time. I'm clicking on that task in the upper half of the window, and as you can see, I have the resource, units, work, baseline work, actual work, and remaining work in the lower half. So as I mentioned before, we'll enter the status report information in these last 2 columns right here. The status report from Lucian reports 20 hours complete, which we enter in actual work, and 20 hours remaining. So he's right on schedule. After we enter that data, we click OK. The next task is task number 7. Workspace design approved by Martha. Judd reports 20 hours complete with 40 hours remaining. As you can see, his project availability is actually 0.75 units, which equals 30 hours of work a week. So we should follow up with him to find out what happened. And I clicked OK, and then let's zoom in to get a close-up look of the task. And as you can see, we have very slight slippage, which reflects the extra hours of work Judd now estimates. Our next task is task number 10, web-based reservation for spa, restaurant, and hotel using no more than 4 pages, 80% of the time. The website contractors report 120 hours of work with 350 remaining. I talked with them, and they think they're going to finish the task a little earlier than they forecasted. So as you saw, I zoomed it in just a little bit right here, and as you can see, the blue bar and the gray bar are no longer right on top of each other. The blue bar is just a little bit shorter, which reflects their new shorter work estimate, which is also showing that that task right now is forecasted to complete just a little bit early. So our last task on project number 5 to update is task number 22. Telephone skills training material developed and approved by Martha. Peggy reports 40 hours complete with 10 hours remaining. And we click OK. Now this is longer than her original estimate, and she told me Martha didn't like her original training design, so she had to rework it. After entering the information and clicking OK, you can see, looking at that blue bar up in the top half right here, we've almost doubled the forecasted duration of the task. So that's the last status report for project number 5, and the last thing we need to do is reschedule the uncompleted work that was scheduled to take place prior to our status date that has not started. So we go to Tools, and then Tracking, and then Update Project. We click on the button, Reschedule Uncompleted Work, and by default, the software put in our status date, so we click OK, and that's all. That brings us to project number 4, which we open up. And as you may recall, we already updated our status date to 3/6/15. So scrolling through really quickly, you can see we've already had some slippage in our project. This is all based on what we just entered in project number 5. Now for project number 4, the only task that was supposed to begin this week was task number 22, telephone skills training, which also has Peggy as our resource. As you know, Peggy's still working on project 5, so we're going to update her work with nothing complete. Now in the lower half of the window, we need to change our view. We right-click and click on Resource Work. That's the view we were using before. So as you can see, we have Peggy assigned. Now she's done 0 work with the 32 remaining. So we enter 0 and 32. and click OK. And then we're going to reschedule the uncompleted work for this project. So once again, we go to Tools and then Tracking and Update Project. Once again, we're going to click on Reschedule Uncompleted Work. And by default, the software once again entered our status date. And we click OK. And that's all. The last step is to save both of our projects and close them. We go ahead and click OK to update the resource pool just like we did before. And close. The last thing we need to do before we run our week's consolidation is add any newly approved projects to the shared resource pool, just like we did when we created the consolidation. After all the individual schedules are updated, we make sure that all the individual Microsoft project files are saved and closed, and then open the resource pool file and select the third option to run the consolidation. Then we generate the weekly reports. The last step is to send out the resource pool for the next week's new projects, so we're using the same resources across all projects. And that's all there is to it.